The thumping bass rolled through the quiet suburban night like thunder over calm waters. At 27 Maple Lane, a house that usually stood cloaked in a silence as predictable as its manicured hedges, music pulsed through the air, chasing away the usual calm with a wild energy that felt almost rebellious. Neon lights flickered from behind the backyard fence, throwing strange colors across the white siding and glowing like a portal to another world, one full of life, laughter, and the unmistakable sounds of a good time. Everyone could hear it. Everyone could feel it. And everyone, it seemed, had been invited. Everyone except Karen Bloom. Inside the neighboring house, lights were dim and shadows stretched long across floral wallpaper and porcelain figurines perched on high shelves. Karen stood by the window, only her silhouette visible in the glow of the television, which was playing an old rerun of Murder, She Wrote, that she wasn't watching. Her attention was elsewhere. Her eyes narrowed behind a pair of wire-rimmed glasses as she peered through the narrow slit in the lace curtain. She wasn't blinking. She was calculating. The noise from next door was not outrageous, but to Karen, it might as well have been the roar of an airport tarmac. She could make out laughter, bits of song lyrics, the chime of glasses clinking together. It was an offense, not only to her ears, but to her entire worldview. Karen Bloom, retired librarian and president of the Maple Lane Neighborhood Watch, a group that only officially met once a year, but in her mind was a 24/7 operation, had always believed in order. Routine, respect for one's surroundings. And this was chaos wrapped in joy. Worse still, it was unapproved. Joy. But what really rankled wasn't the music. It wasn't even the crowd, or the loud games, or the laughter that occasionally drifted over the fence. It was the betrayal of not being invited. Karen prided herself on knowing everything that happened on Maple Lane. She ran the Facebook group. She organized the bake sales. She hand-delivered flyers about pet safety during fireworks season. She reminded people, gently but firmly, about trash pickup guidelines. To be excluded from something this major, it felt like a personal attack, a deliberate one. As a fresh wave of cheers rang out, probably a victory in some party game, Karen thought bitterly, her jaw clenched. She turned away from the window, muttering to herself as she picked up the cordless phone from its dock on the counter. She paused, fingers hovering over the keypad. She didn't want to be that person. Again. She'd already called the city twice this year about sidewalk chalk that hadn't been washed off promptly. And last week she filed a noise complaint about a child's birthday party with an overly enthusiastic clown. But this was different. This was a gathering, a large one, a potentially unlicensed one, the kind that could lead to parking, violations, property damage, or God forbid, dancing. She dialed the non-emergency police number with the resigned air of a martyr. As the phone rang, she looked around the room for Biscuit, her Yorkie mix companion who was currently curled up on the recliner, blissfully unaware of the social injustice occurring outside. Karen spoke into the phone calmly at first, but her voice escalated as she described the situation. "Yes, it's extremely loud. No, I wasn't invited. That's not the point. Well, it is, but not entirely. I'm concerned. I'm very concerned. There could be alcohol, there could be underage people. I saw someone who looked young, and there's a lot of shouting. It's very disruptive." When she hung up, there was a glint of grim satisfaction in her eyes. She'd done her part. She'd taken action. She stood straighter. But even then, she didn't return to her armchair. She lingered at the window, phone still clutched in her hand, tapping it rhythmically against her palm. She could still hear them, those happy voices, the laughter. That particular kind of sound that only happens when people are enjoying themselves and not worrying about who's watching. That sound stung more than she'd anticipated. Karen turned sharply and headed for the kitchen, flipping on the light with a dramatic flourish. She poured herself a glass of boxed Chardonnay, took a single sip, and set it down. Her fingers twitched. Her face was flushed. She wasn't angry. No, she was hurt. This neighborhood was supposed to be her domain. She'd built it up, in Natal, her mind at least, into a kind of kingdom where rules and recognition held firm. But tonight, it felt like the borders had been redrawn, and she'd been left out of the map. She pulled out her iPad and opened the Maple Lane Facebook group. She scrolled furiously, checking for any mention of the event. Nothing. No event notice, no community post, not even a passive-aggressive meme about party etiquette. She clicked into Lily Harper's profile, the 28-year-old teacher who had bought 27 Maple Lane 2 years ago and had the gall to repaint it in millennial purple. Karen had seen the paint swatches on the driveway and nearly fainted. She watched Lily's stories now, boomerangs of clinking glasses, a dog in a party hat, someone dancing with a garden gnome. No invitation. Not even a, "Hey neighbors," just a "Heads up, we're having friends over." Karen's eyes narrowed to slits. There was a time, she told herself, when people had manners. When they brought casserole dishes to new neighbors and invited each other to Tupperware parties. When communities meant something. Not this new era of closed backyard gates and Bluetooth speakers and people who didn't even own coasters. Her thoughts were interrupted by flashing lights. The police cruiser pulled up quietly, its headlights cutting through the night. Karen rushed to the front door, threw it open and stepped outside as if she were about to receive a medal. She adjusted her robe, smoothed her hair, and held her, arms folded in front of her chest with a righteousness that bordered on theatrical. Officer Daniels stepped out of the cruiser, notebook in hand. He recognized her immediately. How could he not? Karen Bloom was a frequent name in the department's call logs, always polite, always precise, and always convinced something was deeply wrong. "Evening, Ms. Bloom," he said, already weary. Karen pointed dramatically toward the fence, where the music and laughter continued. "You hear that? It's bedlam, and I have no idea what's going on over there. But it can't be legal." Daniels nodded with a tight smile. "I'll check it out." As he disappeared through the gate, Karen stood at the edge of her property, watching, waiting, her heart pounding, not from fear or even hope, but from something more bitter, something lonelier, something that sounded in her mind, suspiciously, like being left behind. The cruiser door clicked shut behind Officer Daniels as he made his way across the dewy lawn of 27 Maple Lane, his steps slow, measured. Behind him, Karen Bloom stood at the edge of her driveway, arms still tightly crossed, a picture of moral outrage in fuzzy slippers. Her robe was cinched so tightly it looked like it might snap in half. Biscuit, her perpetually anxious Yorkie mix, had followed her outside and now stood barking toward the fence as if summoning backup. The little dog's yips punctuated the night like exclamation marks on a complaint letter. Inside the backyard, the atmosphere was the opposite of tense. String. Lights crisscrossed above the patio, swaying slightly in the breeze, casting a warm golden glow on the crowd below. It wasn't a rager, not by any stretch. There were no keg stands, no blaring sirens of techno music. Instead, a curated playlist of upbeat indie songs set a mellow rhythm for the gathering. Small clusters of people laughed, sipped from Solo, cups, and chatted over trays of chips, fruit, and hummus. A few were playing a heated game of cornhole, while others lounged on folding chairs talking about weekend plans and terrible bosses. Officer Daniels stepped through the gate into this easygoing scene and paused for a moment to take it all in. He scanned the area with practiced eyes. No visible alcohol bottles in the hands of anyone underage, no shouting matches, no open fires, just a group of 20 and 30-somethings enjoying a Friday night. He spotted Lily Harper standing near the patio table, talking animatedly with two guests and holding a plate of chocolate chip cookies. "Excuse me," Daniel said, stepping forward. Lily turned, instantly alert at the sight of the uniform. "Oh, hi, officer," she said, blinking. "Everything okay?" "We received a noise complaint," Daniel said in a tone that was more apologetic than stern. "Mind if I ask a few questions?" Lily's face went through a quick series of expressions: surprise, mild embarrassment, then a resigned smile. "Let me guess," she said, already gesturing toward the front yard. "Karen?" Daniels gave her a non-committal shrug that gave her all the confirmation she needed. "She's been watching us since we brought out the first lawn chair," Lily muttered. "I figured she might not be thrilled." "No major concerns," Daniels assured her, glancing again at the backyard. "Honestly, things look under control. Music's not disruptive, no excessive noise. But for the sake of peace, maybe just dial the volume down a notch?" Lily nodded. "Totally fair. I'll adjust the speaker." Daniels made a few notes in his pad, then turned to head back toward the gate. As he reached it, he paused, looking back at Lily. "If it's any comfort," he said, "this is the most wholesome party I've ever been called to. I saw more chaos at my niece's 7th birthday last month." Lily laughed, and the people nearby chuckled with her. "We try," she said. "Tell Karen we're saving her a cookie." Back out front, Karen was still standing like a statue made of grievance, her jaw tight, her slippered foot tapping with increasingly urgent frustration. She watched as Daniels approached, and the moment he crossed back onto her lawn, she pounced. "Well?" she asked, practically vibrating with expectation. "What's the plan? Are you going to shut it down?" Daniels held up his hand gently, palms out like someone approaching a skittish animal. "Ms. Bloom, I checked everything. No violations. Just a small friendly gathering. Music's within acceptable limits. No evidence of underage drinking. They're complying with noise ordinances." Karen blinked. The words didn't compute. "So you're doing nothing?" "I wouldn't say nothing," Daniels said carefully. "I asked them to lower the music slightly. They agreed. Everyone was respectful." "Respectful?" Karen snapped, her voice rising. "Respectful would have been not throwing a disruptive backyard party in the first place. Respectful would have been inviting the neighbors, or at least sending a warning. This is a quiet community." Daniels sighed, trying to keep his tone even. "Karen, I understand it's frustrating to feel left out." "Oh, don't," she said, shaking her head fiercely. "This isn't about feelings. This is about rules, about community standards, about noise, about order." Daniels looked at her, a mix of sympathy and fatigue in his eyes. "Ms. Bloom, there's nothing illegal happening. I can't take action on something just because it's inconvenient to you. It's Friday night. They're not hurting anyone." Karen's mouth opened, then closed. For a moment, she looked genuinely lost, like someone who had wandered into a conversation and realized it was in a language she didn't speak. Her eyes darted to the house next door, where the soft music still floated through the air. Now just a hum in the background. The clinking of glasses, the burst of laughter, it all sounded distant, alien, fun she couldn't access. "This is targeted," she said at last, her voice quieter, but no less intense. "They know who I am. They know I've tried to keep this neighborhood from turning into a frat house. They didn't invite me on purpose." Daniels hesitated. "Did you want to be invited?" Karen stared at him, eyes flashing. "That's not the point." Daniels didn't argue. He nodded slowly, gave Biscuit a quick glance, who was now sitting and staring at the fence like a tiny furry sentry, and then turned to leave. "Have a good night, Ms. Bloom." He stepped back into his cruiser, started the engine, and drove off into the night. The flashing lights faded around the corner, leaving Karen standing in the yellowish glow of her porch light, her figure framed in the doorway like a painting of stubborn defiance. Behind her, the television still played its old crime show, the fictional murder mystery now competing with a very real drama of pride and rejection. Karen walked slowly back inside, shutting the door with a firmness that reverberated through the quiet house. She didn't return to the recliner. She stood in the kitchen instead, gripping the countertop, listening. The party hadn't stopped. Not entirely. The music was lower now, the laughter more muted, but it hadn't ended. It hadn't been shut down. She hadn't won. Worse still, no one had even asked her to join. She, who had lived on Maple Lane for over 30 years. Who had watched these houses go up and watched neighbors come and go. Who still sent out the annual HOA email reminder, even if no one replied. It wasn't just the noise. It wasn't even the exclusion. It was the sense that she was no longer central. That the neighborhood had moved on, and the rules she clung to had become optional background noise, like her show, still playing, even when no one was watching. The following afternoon, Maple Lane was quiet again, as if the laughter and music from the night before had been nothing more than a summer breeze passing through. But the silence didn't mean peace. Far from it. The real storm was brewing not in the houses, but online. By 9 a.m., a video clip was already circulating in the local neighborhood Facebook group. It showed Karen, arms flailing, voice sharp, scolding Officer Daniels with the kind of intensity usually reserved for courtroom dramas. The video had been shot from someone's phone behind the fence, and though it was shaky and partially obscured by a decorative bush, the audio was crystal clear. "She's demanding they be arrested," someone commented under the post, adding, laughing emojis. Another wrote, "I live for Karen Bloom content. Season 3 is wild." The post had over 80 reactions by lunchtime, with the comments ranging from disbelief to amusement to outright mockery. Karen had not yet seen the video. She had, however, woken up with a deep feeling of injustice still hanging over her like fog. She'd slept poorly, tossing in bed as snippets of laughter haunted her ears. Now, as she sipped her bitter morning coffee, scrolling through her iPad, she could already feel the tension tightening her shoulders again. Her phone buzzed, a message from a neighbor she barely spoke to anymore. "Hey Karen, saw your cameo. In the party video, you okay?" The message hit her like a slap. She froze, then clicked into the Facebook app and began scrolling. And there it was, her face, mid-sentence, mouth open, finger pointed in righteous fury. Her robe bunched around her like armor, her voice raised and shrill. The caption above the video read, "Maple Lane's Queen returns, Karen versus the party people." Karen's heart sank, then flipped, then burned. The comments were worse. "She's like the neighborhood police. I think she has a siren in her house. She needs a hobby or a hug." But the worst ones were the sarcastic ones pretending to support her. "Protect our streets, Karen. No fun allowed." She slammed the iPad shut. The sense of embarrassment quickly hardened into something sharper. If they were going to mock her, she might as well give them something worth mocking. They wanted a show? Fine, she'd give them one. She set her jaw and stormed off to her spare room, which she had turned into her study, a mix of bookshelves, inspirational cat calendars, and a tripod she'd bought last year for a Zoom book club that never took off. She turned on the light, positioned her iPad against a stack of books, and tapped the Go Live button. It took a few seconds for people to join, but by the time she began speaking, over a dozen little profile icons had popped up. "Hello, neighbors," she began, her tone calm but heavy with unspoken judgment. "This is Karen Bloom, longtime resident of Maple Lane, and I have a few things to say." She was sitting stiffly in a floral armchair, hands clasped on her lap. Behind her, a whiteboard stood with the words, "Maple Lane's Descent," written in black marker. She had even drawn a little chart beneath it, though its purpose remained vague. "Last night," she said, "our neighborhood suffered a setback, a blow to decency, to unity, to common courtesy." She spoke slowly, deliberately. It wasn't just a party. It was a message. A message that the values we've all worked to uphold, quiet, respect, communication, are being bulldozed by a new wave of entitlement and exclusion. More people joined. Some commented. Most just watched. It wasn't just locals now, either. Someone had shared the video in a nearby town's group chat, and Karen's live feed was making the rounds. "They didn't even warn us," she continued, her voice rising. "No flyers, no emails, not even a little sign on the community board. They just assumed we'd be fine with it. With the noise, the disruption, the blatant disregard for the rules that make this place livable." She stood now, gesturing toward her whiteboard. "Look at this. Look how many complaints I've logged in the past 6 months. Barking dogs, speeding, lawn neglect, and now, parties." She pointed to a red-circled name at the bottom, Lily Harper. Lily is not a bad person, but she is careless, thoughtless, and frankly, this whole generation has forgotten what it means to be a neighbor. In the comments, someone wrote, "Is this performance art?" Another, "Can we nominate her for local theater?" And yet another, "Karen Fest 2025 is live." Karen didn't see most of it. She was in the zone now. A performance of her own making, part rant, part manifesto. "I'm not angry that I wasn't invited," she lied, eyes flicking toward the camera. "I'm angry that community spirit is being erased, that traditions are being trampled, that people think they can just do whatever they want." She ended the video 10 minutes later, flushed, trembling slightly. A small sense of relief washed over her. She'd said what needed to be said. Maybe, just maybe, some would understand now. Maybe they'd see she wasn't just a nosy old lady in a robe. But almost immediately, the comments continued to pile in. The hashtags began trending locally. Someone had clipped the part where she yelled, "Debauchery and cliques," and set it to dramatic classical music. Another made a meme of her whiteboard, replacing the chart with a pizza order. She closed the app, sat in silence. Then she noticed something, a notification. A new comment from Lily Harper herself, posted not on the video, but in the neighborhood group chat. It read, "Karen, I didn't invite you because you've reported me 6 times in the last 3 months, including once for playing guitar too joyfully. I assumed you hated parties. But if you want to come next time, you're welcome." That one comment stopped everything. There was a beat of silence in the group, a rare moment of stillness in the chaos. Reactions came slowly at first. Thumbs up, heart emojis, and a few stunned responses like, "Whoa," and "fair point." Karen stared at the comment, her face unreadable. Something inside her cracked just a little, not from pain, but from recognition. That odd, uncomfortable jolt of being seen clearly. Lily had cut right to the truth. Karen hadn't been excluded just because of malice or oversight. She'd pushed people away, reported them, judged them, shut herself off under the illusion that she was protecting something sacred. But what if that something didn't need protecting? She didn't comment back. She didn't post a reply. She didn't even like it. She just stood, walked to her kitchen, and poured herself a fresh cup of coffee. She stood by the window again, the same one where she had watched the party with resentment. Now she stared at the empty backyard. The remnants of last night's joy were still there. The folding chairs, the string lights, the trampled grass. But the noise was gone. And, strangely, she missed it. She missed the hum of something bigger than herself, something imperfect and messy and human, something like community. Sunday morning dawned bright and unassuming, as if the sky itself had no idea of the drama that had unfolded on Maple Lane over the last 48 hours. The street, lined with trimmed hedges and identical mailboxes, looked calm, still, the kind of place where nothing unexpected ever really happened. Yet behind the neat facades and closed doors, people were still talking. Karen Bloom had become a local legend. Her live rant now shared across multiple neighborhood watch pages, and even, to her horror, posted on TikTok by a high schooler from 3 blocks over. The video had racked up thousands of views under the hashtag #GotKarenOnMaple, and one creator had even done a dramatic reading of it, complete with classical violin and candlelight. Karen didn't leave the house that morning. She didn't water her roses or sweep her porch like she usually did. Instead, She hovered near the window again, sipping lukewarm coffee from her best cat mom mug and watching the world move on without her. Children biked past, laughing. A jogger with headphones nodded politely at no one in particular. A young couple across the street brought out their baby in a stroller and began a slow, quiet walk toward the park. It was as if the street had shrugged off the entire debacle. But Karen hadn't. Not yet. The humiliation burned in her bones. It wasn't just the memes or the sarcastic comments or even the videos. It was the comment Lily had left. So honest, so disarmingly fair. It had pinned her in place like a butterfly under glass. All this time she'd imagined herself as the protector of the neighborhood, the last bastion of good manners and order. But maybe all she'd really done was wall herself off in a fortress of complaints and corrections. Maybe she'd become the very thing she thought she was saving the neighborhood from. She wasn't ready to apologize. Not yet. But something deeper stirred in her. The sense that a door she'd locked years ago had been quietly nudged open. By noon, Karen had changed out of her robe and into a smart pair of navy slacks and a blouse with tiny embroidered birds on the collar. She didn't have a plan exactly, but staying inside another minute felt unbearable. She stepped out into the sunshine and walked toward her driveway. She stood there a moment, pretending to check her mailbox, but her eyes were fixed across the street, Lily's house. The backyard was visible from the side gate, still strung with lights, the cornhole set leaning against the fence, a few empty chairs folded neatly and stacked on the deck. Then, as if on cue, Lily came out the front door holding a paper bag, sunglasses on her head, her expression unreadable. She froze slightly when she spotted Karen. The two women locked eyes across the narrow street. Karen's heart pounded. She had every intention of just nodding, maybe giving a weak wave and going back inside. But instead, before she fully understood what she was doing, she stepped off the curb and began walking toward Lily's house. Lily blinked, surprised, but didn't move. Karen stopped at the edge of the walkway, her hands awkwardly clasped in front of her. "Hi?" she said, her voice smaller than she'd expected. "Hey," Lily said, her voice wary but not unkind. There was a pause, a long one. Karen cleared her throat. "I saw your comment." Lily raised an eyebrow. "Yeah?" Karen nodded, swallowing. "You were right about the guitar thing. That was dramatic." A smile twitched at the edge of Lily's mouth, then faded again. "We didn't mean to leave you out, Karen. Honestly. But it felt like inviting you would have made things harder. You've been, well, you know, a menace," Karen supplied. "The Maple Lane menace." Lily let out a genuine laugh at that, the tension breaking slightly. Karen sighed. "I think I forgot how to be a neighbor somewhere along the way. Got so wrapped up in rules and expectations. I didn't mean to push everyone away, I just wanted things to be nice," Lily finished for her. "I get it. But sometimes nice looks different than it used to." Karen gave a soft smile. "I suppose it does." Lily hesitated, then reached into the paper bag she was holding. "Chocolate chip muffins," she said, pulling one out. "I was just dropping them off at a couple neighbors' houses as a thank you for not calling the cops." Karen laughed, genuinely. "Bit late for that." Lily extended the muffin. "Peace offering?" Karen took it carefully, holding it as if it might vanish. "Thank you." They stood there for a moment, quiet. The breeze rustled through the trees, and somewhere in the distance a dog barked. Karen looked down at the muffin, then back at Lily. "If there's ever another event," Karen said slowly, "maybe give me a heads up. I promise not to bring a decibel meter." "I'll do you one better," Lily said. "Next one's a potluck." "Bring a dish." Karen raised an eyebrow. "You trust me with food?" "Only if you promise not to poison us out of revenge." "Tempting," Karen said, then added, "but I make a mean lemon square." Lily grinned. "You're on." They parted a few minutes later with an awkward but genuine wave, the kind that hinted at new beginnings rather than old habits. Karen walked back to her house, the muffin warm in her hand, the sun gentle on her back. She didn't go inside immediately. Instead, she sat on her porch swing, something she hadn't done in years, and took a bite of the muffin. It was delicious. Maybe things really were changing. Maybe the street was louder than it used to be. Maybe the rules were looser, the lines blurrier. But maybe, just maybe, that wasn't such a bad thing. She looked out over Maple Lane, the street she'd watched for decades. For the first time in a long while, it didn't feel like something slipping away from her. It felt like something she might be part of again. She took another bite, closed her eyes, and let the sound of life drift over her. The laughter, the footsteps, the music, all of it. This time she didn't report it. She just listened.